I think the most important thing for every guitar player is to have a guitar that is set up well. When you're starting off playing guitar, I don't think it makes a big difference which brand you use, so long as it's something comfortable and something you enjoy playing. An important thing for me, definitely, starting off was that I found that the action on my first guitar, so that's how close the strings are to the fretboard, was very, very high. You know, I could nearly fit my hand underneath it. So when it's that high, it's really, really difficult to play. So I think that beginning, especially playing this fingerstyle, in this fingerstyle method, I think it's important to get a guitar that feels good, something you enjoy playing. To talk a little bit about the guitar I'm using a Maton guitar from Australia. And the reason I choose this guitar is because they've got the best pickup system in the world. I haven't heard anything that is better. There are lots and lots of nice acoustic guitars out there, so when you are choosing a guitar, it's always important to get something that feels nice and sounds good to your ear. But for me, as a musician who is always plugged in, this is the most important thing to me, that it feels good and that it sounds good when I plug it in. That's number one for me. I use 12, which is light, I think. For this, I want a string that is hard enough that can be, you know, that I can play hard and it will still sound good, but it also needs to be soft enough so that when I play the kind of the more funky stuff, like that it's not too difficult on my fingers. When I am in a guitar shop, I will take Diodario, Martin, Ernie Ball, everything. And then when I am restringing my guitar, I pick a different brand each time. And the reason I do this is because the guitar reacts differently to different strings. They are all a little bit different in how they are made and how much kilograms of pressure are on the body. And so each time you use a different type of string, the guitar feels different. And I think that's a good thing. This is my song, Avenue. So what helps a lot of people to begin playing fingerstyle is getting your little finger, your pinky, and putting it here on the guitar. You'll notice here that my guitar is a little bit worn down because my pinky is here all the time. And this helps to anchor your hand. This gives extra strength to your other fingers. And so what helped me a lot was learning that, for example, you learn your basic chords the same as everybody else, G and C, D, that's хорошо, that's fine. But when you start arpeggiating the chords, so that means that you are going up and down, like, it's important to build up equal strength in each finger. So yeah, it's a problem a lot of times I hear when somebody's thumb is really strong but their fingers are weak. So it's important to have equal strength in all the fingers so that when you play it sounds smooth. So those are just some kind of basic technical things. I'd like to show you the way I learned to use my thumb alternating between the bass strings. So you can do this with or without a thumb pick. Sometimes I use this little thumb pick that sits on my thumb like this, and sometimes I just use my fingers. So when I started off, I took a chord like C, normal C chord, and what I would do is I would put my thumb on the 5th string, the root note, which is C. And then what I would do is I would alternate between the 5th string, the 4th string, the 6th string, the 4th string. And in English we call that 5, 4, 6, 4. So the sound you get from this is like that, okay? The next step is to bring your fingers in along with this. So when you've got this, it's then time to bring your fingers in along with the bass. So you bring your fingers in on the first beat each time. So if I'm counting 5, 4, 6, 4, each time I hit 5, I use my fingers. So I go 5, 4, 6, 4, 5, 4, 6, 4. So that's step one, learning how to use your thumb with your fingers, okay? Step number 2 is learning how to use your thumb independently from your fingers, so doing a different thing with your thumb and your fingers. So what I do in this example is I still play my fingers when I play the 5, but then in between 4 and 6, I use my fingers again. So I'll show you, okay? So I got 5, 4, 6, 4, 5, 4, 6. Then fingers on 5, 5, 4, 6, 4, 5, 4, 6, 4. This time fingers on 5 and between 4 and 6. So 5, 4, 6, 4, 5, 4, 6, 4. So you hear my fingers are coming in on the off beat. It's not coming in on the beat, it's coming in before the beat. So this is the first time that you feel independence between your fingers and thumb, because for the first time they are doing different things. And this looks simple, but it's very difficult to do. It's difficult to think about it as two different things. Most people, when they begin, they think of this as just one pattern. But really, the way to think about it is, you've got number 1 on this side, and then on this side, and then we marry them both together. So we got like that, okay? So that's the first step to independence with your thumb and your fingers. And so I think that everybody who starts playing guitar in the fingerstyle way learns this to begin with. But then I think the stuff that's a little bit more cool comes later. So I'll give you an example of something maybe a little bit more like what I do. In the song I just played for you, Avenue, you heard the backbeat like a drummer. Yeah. So the idea with this is, in the same way as a drummer thinks about 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm trying to get that 2 and the 4 with my thumb, like that. So for example, with Avenue, you hear me play 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4. So you get this feeling like there's an extra drummer or extra percussion. And I think this is a really good technique for people who want to maybe not play the technical fingerstyle stuff, but maybe they're a singer, songwriter, and maybe they want to get a bigger sound with just one guitar. So you can use a lot of these techniques even if you're not playing solo guitar. You can use it in a setting with a band, you can use it with a singer or a choral group. You can use these techniques a lot of different places. It's not just for solo guitar playing. I think a good exercise for building individual finger strength is to take something, let's say for example, I don't know, A minor, okay, easy, nice simple chord like this. Okay, now what I will do is, I will play like this, very, very soft, okay? And then I will pick one finger to become louder. So maybe I say, okay, this finger louder. So I'll go, bring it back down, soft. Maybe now this finger, so, okay, louder, soft. Okay, now maybe this finger. And this way, by using each finger, listening for a bigger sound, I think you feel more in control of your fingers. So you pick each finger and you try to bring the volume up and down the same way as if you had a 4-channel mixer bringing up and down, like that. Sometimes I use alternate tunings. It depends on whether or not I can get the right feeling from standard tuning. I prefer standard tuning all the time if I can. But if something is not working for me in standard tuning, I will maybe try to find a way to change the tuning as little as possible to make it work. So for example, for Irish music, it's very difficult to make it sound Irish, I think, in standard tuning. But when I use the dadgad, now this feels more Irish to me, because with many Irish instruments we have drone notes, which are like long, heavy notes, and also repeating notes. You've got D, 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 also A, so more than one time. So D with 3 times, A twice, and so it sounds bigger, I think. Yeah, for example, there is a piece of music that I played when I was younger, which I played on the concertina, which was my first instrument. It's like a little small accordion. And I arranged it for the guitar. I'll play a little bit of it for you. But it didn't work in standard tuning. I needed some ringing notes. So I changed the guitar to dadgad, and I played the melody almost the same as standard tuning, and it sounded much, much better. Yeah, so this is the Blackbird. Oh, that would help. So you hear there that because the ringing notes are always in the background, to me this feels more Irish. So I try not to move away from standard tuning too much. It can also take up a lot of time when I'm on stage to start changing tunings, and I don't like that. So I prefer to just be in tune quickly and more music. I think it's important always that guitarists and musicians in general remember that it's very, very important to stretch your hands, to do hand exercises. So I'll show you what I mean. I won't use the guitar for this. It's important before you play to be able to stretch each of your fingers on both hands, okay? Because what you don't want is a situation where you get pain in your arm. If you get pains, or if you get, problems like that with your posture, I think there's something wrong with your technique. So what I do, and you can try this if you want, and you will feel the difference if you only do it with one hand. So I recommend maybe use your left hand for this, is stretch out your left hand in front of you. And what we do is, with each finger, we stretch it back towards us. And stretch until you feel the stretch. Not that it hurts, but you feel the stretch. Okay? And then do it the other way. Okay? And we do this for about 5 seconds each for each finger. So then we move to the next finger. For me, it does two things. First of all, it allows me to get the blood into my fingers. And it also helps with my warm-up. So before I play a show, I will be doing this backstage. I might do it once or twice. I also do it when I wake up in the morning. And so even with just those 4 fingers, okay, and we'll do the thumb as well. Okay, so that's 4 fingers. And now the thumb, pull it back towards yourself a little bit. Like that. Pull it over to the side. Like that. And over this way. Just all the movements of the thumb. Okay. The last thing to do, when that is done, okay, you can shake it out a little bit, give it a rest. Then make it as big as you can, as if you're stretching like that. Make your hand as big as possible, like this, and hold it. And then again, shake it out, okay? So for the people who did it with all the fingers, if you do this now with both of your hands, you will feel the difference. You will feel this hand is very quick and this hand is more slow. So that is an important thing to remember. No matter what instrument you play, you need to prepare your body. The same way that when an athlete is running in a race, they warm up, they stretch their muscles. As musicians, we do the same. I think another good tip also for guitarists is, with the left hand, it's a really good idea to learn how to use your thumb to play notes on the 6th string and also sometimes the 5th string. Almost everyone I meet who is a beginner has an issue with the chord F. So, and the problem is they think, oh, it's bar chord, it's hard, my finger hurts. It's like, if you think about in normal life, when we pick up something, if we have coffee and we get the coffee, we pick it up with our hand is going forwards like this, okay? So the idea is to do the same with the guitar neck, okay? The same way you pick up the coffee, you pick up guitar, your hand is like this, okay? You never pick up a coffee like this. You never get your coffee and drink it that way. We get it that way and drink it. Same with the guitar, that way. So instead of F being like this, now we do F like this, and it's much easier for your hand. And this technique with my thumb helps me to play bass lines on the guitar. So for example, a tune like, I don't know, Cannonball Rag, very, very popular fingerstyle song. I will show you how I use my thumb to play the bass line. So the bass line goes. Okay, so I use my thumb to go. See here? So my thumb is moving like this. And this is important because it leaves me 4 fingers free to make chords while my thumb can do something separate. And also, I think sometimes people have an issue with making difficult chord shapes and also making stretches on the guitar. But there is a good technique to use to stretch your hand that I can show you. So for this exercise, I make the chord of B on the neck, and I use my thumb to hold the B note here. And so what I do is I start with B, and then I move down to F sharp, and I move to A, and I move to E, but I keep my thumb in the same place. So I have B, F sharp, A, E, and then back up. A, F sharp, B, G sharp, C sharp, if you can make it up to there. But what this does is, if you look from the back, your thumb starts here playing E, and it ends up here playing the, what chord is that? D, like that. But your hand goes from this position to this position, so your thumb is stretching all the time. And this is what builds up this muscle in your thumb. This makes it very strong. I also think an important thing to know about the right hand is that there are, I think, 2 ways to hold your right hand for playing fingerstyle music. So the first way is what I think of as a more classical way. It's not really classical, but I think of it as more classical. So in this style, we have our fingers coming directly across the string, okay? So just like a classical player with their nails, with our fingers we come across the string at a very good angle, and it's a very clean note. So this is, for example, when I am playing a slow song and I want all the notes to be clean and I want them to ring out, I will use this technique. So I will show you. So you'll hear it. Oh, I forgot this. So you hear there, all the notes are very clean. There is no buzzing, no distortion. The notes are very even in volume. So it's nice, it's very controlled. So the opposite of this, I think, is when you move your hand from this position, the classical position, up to here. So it's like doing a claw movement like this. So going from here up to here. And so this part of your hand, this part of your thumb, I don't even know what it's called in English, just this part of your hand rests here on the guitar, and your fingers, instead of coming across the string, they now go under the string and they come up. Very sharp. And so what this is useful for is if you want to get some aggression, you want to get some bite into your guitar playing. This is a good way to get extra attack from the guitar without having to use extra pressure from your hands, just changing where your fingers are touching with the strings. So an example is The Claw by Jerry Reed. That sounds like this with this technique. Okay, so you hear that very sharp sound. But the other way, the classical way, okay, moving hand, moving back. You hear the difference? It's very, very sharp. So this can give you an extra bit of attack when you want to get a note to really feel very strong. And then the really cool part is sometimes when I am playing tunes, I will switch between both techniques if I want to get different sounds. So for example, the first tune I played, Avenue, I switch between this style and this style. The first part of Avenue has claw, so goes. But then the part in the middle goes, and my hand is out, is open in the classical. But I come back into the song, back to claw. Okay, so that's the way, that's I think an important technique to know how to do. If you can switch between claw and classical, I think that's very good for your dynamics. For me, I never ever learned by sheet, ever. It was always by ear. In Ireland, when we learn music, we only learn by ear. We never look at the sheet music. So for me, I can't read music. I don't understand it. I don't understand music theory. I'm very, very bad at that. For writing music, I always think the best way to write music is don't write the music on the guitar. I think it's, if you sit down with the guitar and you say, okay, I'm going to compose whatever, I think it never sounds, what's the word? It never sounds like you. You know, it always sounds like guitar music. But if you want to be a composer and you want to write good music, the way I do it is that so the guitar is nowhere near me. And what I will try to do is I will try to come up with ideas in my head. I will try to sing. Maybe I'm trying to imagine a trumpet. Maybe I'm trying to imagine an orchestra. Maybe I want to hear something I heard on the street. And I will try to take that idea and I will then try to find a way to use it musically. I'll give you an example. My tune Marrakesh. I heard the call to prayer, the Muslim call to prayer, and I thought this would be interesting to find a way to play this on the guitar or to find a similar sound. So in my head I was thinking, okay, well, to me it sounds like something similar. Okay, so then I think, okay, well, I get my iPhone and I take voice memos and I go with me, I go okay, and then stop and then play and I listen. Okay, so I go, where do I find this? And I try to find the music on the guitar, you know, so even if I don't know what the notes are, I will go looking, I will go searching for that melody, and I will try to do my best to find that sound on the guitar. And I think that's where the best ideas come from. I think an important thing is not to let the guitar influence how you write or how you learn music, because I think that when you try to compose music on the guitar, you will do what you are already familiar with. If you know that you are playing, for example, in G, and you know, oh, well, I can use this lick in G, or I can use this chord change, you will be more likely to use it, not because you want to, but because you know how to. So I try to do the opposite. I think that listening to lots of different kinds of music is a good thing, because you can learn, you can get inspiration and learn new things from every type of music. And I think it's also important not to have any preconceptions, I'm trying to think of an easier word, and any ideas about music, sort of, yeah, like saying, oh, I don't like electronic music, or oh, I don't like jazz. I think that's a bad thing. I think you have to give every type of music a chance to see what you can learn from it. And I will give you an example of something I learned. So when I was at a music festival in Ireland a couple of years ago, for the first time I heard an electronic producer, and his name is deadmau5, and the type of music he makes is usually so that's usually not me. But I heard something interesting in his music, and I heard interesting chords coming from this kind of electro song, and I thought, they're really unusual, but I'm going to find out what they are. So at the music festival, I ran back to my tent where I was camping, and I got my guitar, and I decided to try and figure out from memory what he was playing, because the chord changes for me were so unusual. I'll play now they're not so interesting on their own, but I will show you the chord changes just so you understand the way I was thinking. So the chord progression of that song, it's called I Remember, and the chords go, where does it go? Oh yeah. Okay, so they're strange chords to put together. But what it taught me about music is that sometimes you can put chords that don't sound like they work together, and if you have the right melody note, it will tie everything together. The other thing it forced me to think about was that a lot of those chords have more than 5 or 6 notes, and on the guitar we've only got 6 notes total, 6 notes maximum. So no matter who you hear playing the guitar, they've got the same 6 notes to pick from as you do. And again, this way of thinking for me all came from hearing this electro song at a festival, totally by accident. But it really helped me to think differently about chords and how to put them together. And it's the same thing listening to, for example, Tchaikovsky, Romeo and Juliet, so some of those chords are very strange. What's that? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, you know. I don't know, but I know the sound. So I hear the chord and the ah. So put them together. Ah. So you can learn interesting sounds from listening to music that you're maybe not so familiar with. But if you learn how to say, okay, this is an interesting sound I like, how can I play this on the guitar? I think that's when you learn the most. I think it's always important when you begin performing on stage to know that before you go on stage, you should try to make yourself feel as good as you can and as positive as you can. For me, I always want to feel calm before I go on the stage. I think some people think that they need to feel excited to go on stage, and some people need to feel like, oh, if I'm so nervous, I don't know what to do because I'm too nervous to go on the stage. But I think the way to get over that is, first of all, tell your audience that you feel a little bit nervous, because once they know, they support you more. The other important thing for me is that I know that not everybody that comes to see me is a hardcore guitarist. And even for me, sometimes a concert of guitar music for 2 hours is way too much. So I think it's important to learn how to entertain an audience. I think the ideal goal is to be able to take 50 people from the street, could be anybody, and put them in front of you. And if you're able to show them a good time and make them interested with your music and your stage presence, I think then you're doing a good job. And the other important thing to remember is that when you've got, for example, a band, you've got, you know, different frequencies. You've got the drums, the bass, and you've got the singer and everything. With one guitar, you've got one frequency range from the bottom to the top. And in a lot of cases, you start with all the frequencies, and that's it. It doesn't change all that much. So for me, it's important to try to change as much as possible. That's why sometimes I will use an alternate tuning, I sing, I tell stories. And for example, the other ways you can use a guitar, especially when it's plugged in, you've got all these extra sounds that don't sound so good plugged out. But for example, when you play drums on the guitar, you know, that's an extra sound on the guitar. Singing is an extra sound. Sometimes changing the tuning, you've got your guitar sounds lower. The other thing that sometimes I do is I will use the different guitar effects, okay? Some of these are guitar pedals and some of these are things I do with the guitar. So I will start with the guitar pedals. So I have a pedal here called an octave pedal, and that simulates the sound of a bass guitar. So I will turn this on only sometimes during my set because it's a nice change for your ears. It hears a new frequency for the first time. So for example, when I'm playing Let's Dance by David Bowie, without octave sound, now with octave, you hear that low sound. So it's not so obvious through a small amplifier like this, but when you have the big sound system and you kick on that bass, it's like, you know, it's like Hans Zimmer. So that's something I do with a pedal. To show you something different, I've got, I think I have it here, some of my, yeah, I do. This is a little piece of cardboard that I use, and I put this in between the strings. And this lets me emulate the sound of an African steel drum, or the kora, which is like an African harp. And so this now, the guitar with no extra effect, sounds like. Okay, so you get this cool. And you get this sort of African sound. And all from just using some cheap plastic, you know. 300 euros, 30 cents. Very cheap. So these are some things you can do just to get some new sounds for your audience's ears. So those are some things I use. Sometimes I think about them when I am composing. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it happens by accident. But I think it's important when you are planning out a show or a set of music to remember that the more variety you have in your show and the more you are an entertainer, the more chance that people will enjoy your show. I think the best advice I can give to somebody who is a fingerstyle guitar player, or to be honest, any type of solo musician, is that it's so important to try to find your own sound. The way I have found what I think is my own sound is by eliminating the guitar from my composition process. So, as I said, when I write music, I don't write it on the guitar. I write it from my head, and I try to arrange it as much as possible and then I take out the guitar and I say, okay, how am I going to play this music? That works for me. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for me, certainly. I also think it's important to always play music that you like. If you play music you don't like, or if you are forced to play music, I don't think a real love can grow from doing that. So I think it's your duty to always find music you like and learn it and learn from it, and also try to play as much good music as you can. Try to really push yourself to get your technique to a really good place. Make sure that you know how to get a good sound, how to deal with a good crowd, and don't be afraid to play original music, because people will like it more than you think. It's always a good idea to play covers, but I think that also you have to give your original music a chance, because you can be really surprised when people hear your music and they connect with it. So I think that's my biggest advice.